She left on a Wednesday, which she said felt wrong for a day that was supposed to matter. Not dramatically. No argument, no door slamming, no single terrible moment she could point to later as the reason. She'd spent a long time knowing she was going to go and an even longer time convincing herself she wasn't. And then one Wednesday morning, she put $4,000 in a box of her things in the car and drove to her sister's house. And that was that. She was 41 years old, and she didn't know her own credit score. The discovery, because there was one, just not the kind you'd expect, came about 3 weeks after she left, when she sat down to figure out what she actually had. She knew she had the $4,000. She knew she had a job, a solid one, managing operations for a regional nonprofit, income she'd had for years. She thought she understood her own financial picture because she'd been working and earning for her entire adult life. What she discovered, pulling everything into one place for the first time as a single person, was that she'd been functioning inside a combined financial life so thoroughly that she didn't really have an individual one. The mortgage was in both names and she couldn't service it alone. The car she drove was leased in his name. Their savings account, the one she thought of as theirs, had $31,000 in it, and while half of that was technically hers in any legal sense, accessing it required conversations she wasn't ready to have yet. So she had $4,000 in a job and 17 years of financial life that was structured entirely around two people existing together. They got together when she was 23 and he was 26, which means she built every significant financial habit and structure she had as part of a pair. There was never a period of her adult financial life where she was truly independent. She went from her parents' house to a shared apartment with him within a year of graduation. And after that, the money just kept weaving together the way it does when you're building something that's supposed to last. Joint account for bills, joint account for saving. His name on the mortgage because his credit was better at the time. Her income often covering the groceries and the vacations and the smaller daily life, while his went to the big fixed costs. It wasn't an unfair arrangement. She was clear about that. She didn't leave because the financial setup was exploitative. She left because the marriage was finished in all the ways that matter and had been for a while. But the setup, as reasonable as it was when they were in it together, left her essentially starting from zero at 41. She'd never applied for an apartment lease alone. She'd never bought a car alone. She'd never built a credit profile that didn't have his income in the picture too. And the financial identity she'd spent 17 years building was, functionally, a joint one that she couldn't take with her when she walked out. There's no villain in this story, which makes certain things harder rather than easier. If someone had done something to her, taken something, hidden something, or controlled something, there would at least be a clear place to put the anger. Instead, there was just a system she'd participated in and believed in, and that had worked fine while the marriage worked, and now the marriage was over, and the system was leaving her exposed in ways she hadn't anticipated and couldn't have anticipated because she'd never imagined being here. The thing that was hardest to sit with, she stated, wasn't the financial difficulty. She's a practical person. She could see the problem and work toward it. What was hard was the realization that she'd spent 17 years building security and arrived at the end of it feeling profoundly insecure. Not because the marriage was bad, because the structure of their shared life, which felt like security while they were in it, was actually a kind of dependency neither of them had noticed building, and she was the one who discovered it when the floor came away. My grandmother used to say, and she said it without any bitterness because she'd learned it the hard way after my grandfather died, and she'd never managed money once in 40 years of marriage. She used to say that the most dangerous kind of security is the kind that belongs to someone else. I've thought about that sentence in a lot of different ways since she first said it to me, and this story brought it back. Her income was $62,000 a year, which take-home after tax put her at around $4,100 a month. Reasonable income, not lavish. The apartment she found, a one-bedroom, reasonable neighborhood, not where she wanted to be long-term but practical, ran $1,650 a month. She needed a car, since the leased one went back to him, and she financed a used one, adding $380 a month. Food, utilities, phone, insurance, roughly $700 a month, maybe less once she found her rhythm. That left her $1,370 a month after fixed expenses, which sounds like enough until you remember that she had essentially no emergency fund. $4,000 doesn't cover much in a city. No personal savings to speak of beyond her stake in the joint account, and no credit history as a single applicant strong enough to feel solid. She got the apartment because a friend co-signed, which was its own kind of humbling at 41. The marital assets split, the house equity, the joint savings, would eventually land something real in her account. Her rough estimate was $85,000 once everything settled, but everything takes time to settle, and in the meantime, she was running on $4,000 and whatever $1,370 a month she could save, and the gap between where she was and where she needed to be was visible and measurable and not going away anytime soon. She stated that the first month was strange in a way she hadn't predicted. Not difficult, exactly, but strange. She'd go to the grocery store and feel a specific kind of vertigo standing in the aisle, not knowing what she was shopping for because she'd always been shopping for two. She'd come home to an apartment that had exactly the furniture she'd been able to move: a bed, a couch, a small kitchen table, and sit in it and feel the square footage as something both liberating and enormous. She opened a spreadsheet one Saturday afternoon and mapped every number she knew onto it: income, expenses, what she owed on the car, her share of the joint savings, the rough timeline for the house. She printed it out and put it on the refrigerator. She said looking at it every morning felt important, like proof that the thing was real and had a shape she could work with, even if the shape was uncomfortable right now. I think the thing that stays with me about this story is how preventable the vulnerability part was, while the leaving part was necessary. She built a life with someone she loved, and she organized her money around that life, the way most people do. The problem is that joint financial identities, especially long ones, especially where one person's credit or income anchored the big stuff, can quietly erode your individual financial standing in ways you don't notice until you need to stand alone. Her credit score, her credit history as an individual, her savings in her own name, all of it was thinner than it should have been for someone who'd been working and earning for nearly 2 decades, because the system was designed around two. What I keep thinking about for anyone in a long partnership, not just people who are planning to leave because most people aren't, is, do you know what your individual financial picture looks like right now? Not the joint one, the individual one. Your own credit score, your own savings in your own name, your own retirement picture, whether you could service your own housing costs if you needed to. That's not pessimism about the relationship. It's just knowing. And she didn't know, and finding out at 41 with $4,000 in her account made a hard thing harder. What she did right, and I want to name this because it mattered, was the spreadsheet, not the making it work part, which she was going to manage regardless, the looking at it honestly part, the putting the number on the refrigerator part. There's a version of this where she avoids the full picture for 6 months because it's painful, and that version ends up much worse. The willingness to see it clearly, even when it's uncomfortable, is the actual skill. It's worth naming when someone has it. She's 8 months in now. The house settled, the $85,000 landed. She moved it immediately into her own savings account and sat with her financial picture fresh for the first time in her adult life. She said it felt like exhaling after holding her breath for a very long time. She's not where she wants to be. She knows that, but she's somewhere she can see from, which is different from before. The question I can't quite let go of is this: if you're building a life with someone and all of your financial security is built into the structure of being with them, what exactly do you have? And at what point is maintaining your own financial self, independent of that structure, the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself? Starting over looks different from the inside than it does from the outside, and I think she knew that better than most by the end of this. If something here found you where you are, whether you're mid-restart or just wondering what you'd actually have if you had to find out, subscribe. There's more of this every week. Take care of yourselves and each other.